That's nice. So how'd you get in the world of marketing and advertising? Because this is not something that most people don't go to school for it, especially as long as you've been doing it. So how'd you get started?
Well, actually, I went to college, but I never completed it. And I went to college, and they put me in mechanical engineering because I was good at math. But they didn't realize I loved art and English and stuff like that. And I worked part-time as a coach with a famous photographer in Montreal. Montreal was really cool because it's cheaper than New York for a lot of people. So a lot of New York companies would use Montreal photographers, and Montreal photographers would often come from Europe. They'd come from Europe to Montreal, and then they do work in America. And I ended up working with a couple of famous photographers, and I learned photography, and I ended up working in a studio. As I worked my way up, I eventually realized that advertising is the boss of photography. And so I got involved in advertising and eventually built an advertising agency. When I did that, I learned that that marketing is the boss of advertising, because advertising is, communicating a message, trying to sell stuff, but you're still communicating a message. Whereas marketing is, what's the message we want? What's the process we want? As time went on, I actually got involved with and became one of America's leaders in behavioral management, because I realized that behavioral management is the boss of marketing. It's like, how do you don't just want to communicate a message. What do you want? You want people to buy your product. You want people to figure stuff out, to understand your business. I'm lucky because I had famous people like Warren Buffett's team. When Warren Buffett started buying companies, they brought me in because, to change the habits and behaviors of a lot of people. They brought me in. The first place was a bank in Southern California that Warren Buffett bought. When he started buying companies, he invests, but he would also buy companies, or he started buying companies. And so we started with a bank, and all the managers in a bank, he wanted them to sell. And they were like, well, I became a manager. Do I have to sell? And he wanted somebody to make him love selling. And so I got him to love selling. So they thought it was really cool, because I used to hate selling. My brother, I was in business with my brother when I had my advertising agency, and he could outsell me like crazy. He loved selling. I hated selling. As time went on, I learned that I actually had an opportunity to win Avon Cosmetics in Canada. Mm-hmm. And we went in there, we're sitting there, and the buyer for Avon says, hey, to my brother John, and I'm sitting there, but he's talking to my brother John, and he says, hey, John, it's between you and another company. I'd rather use the other company. I'd rather use you guys, work with you guys in the other company, but frankly, your price is higher. And so my brother leans across the desk and whispers, why do you think the other guy's price is so cheap? There's a long pause, and then he goes, okay, fine, let me write you up a purchase order. And I thought, like, what the hell? He's going to hire us because we're more expensive? What? And that became the beginning for me of understanding, marketing. And I became fascinated by the science of marketing. I had an opportunity to win the anti-drug campaign in America. We work our way up. I work my way up. Eventually, family and business doesn't always mix. I love my brother dearly, but not in business. So, but I worked my way up, and eventually won major clients like Kraft Foods, Timex Watches, Abbott Laboratories, Seagram's, their world's headquarters is there. And I had the opportunity to win an anti-drug campaign in America. And I came up with powerful, logical reasons why you should not do drugs. And then I lost. What I lost to, it scared the hell out of me. It was anti-drug campaign. It was a guy holding an egg, a video of a guy holding an egg saying, this is your brain, and cracking a shell and dropping the egg into a sizzling frying pan. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions? When I saw that, two things happened. The first thing was, I recognized this is infinitely more powerful than my logic. This is emotion. I had logical reasons why you shouldn't do drugs, and he's like doing this one story with this guy with the egg, and suddenly that's much more powerful. I also realized it's emotional selling. And I had no idea how to do emotional selling. And it freaked me out because I said, I'm in advertising. How can I be in advertising and marketing and business and not know how to do emotional selling? So I realized they don't teach emotional selling in school.
No.
And so I went to the library, but there's no real books on it. There's superficial stuff, but no real books talking about it. And so I decided to put a box next to my computer, and I called it the passion box. And I like to write stuff on a 3x5 card if I can't get a copy of something or an ad or something like that. And I would write on a 3x5 card. In that case, I wrote "Your Brain on Drugs," so I'd remember the ad, and I put it in the box. And I would start putting all kinds of things in the box that are emotional, including phrases. Like President John F. Kennedy said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." And I went like, that's interesting. Malcolm X said, "We didn't land on Plymouth Rock, the rock landed on us." It's like, wow, these are great lines, and there's something emotional about it. He also said, which a lot of people don't realize, Malcolm X said this, he said, "When you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything."
Yeah.
These are powerful lines. It's more powerful than saying, "Hey, you got to stand for something." That's what we normally say. But he said this thing. So when we moved to California, and about 10 years later, and so my passion box was full. You can imagine in 10 years how much stuff I saved him. And I met John Gray. And John Gray's a writer, and he was telling me that he wrote this book, Men, Women, and Relationships. And people loved this book. They said, "Man, that book changed my life. It's the most incredible relationship book I've ever read." But almost nobody was buying it. So he's at a seminar trying to sell this book, and he says something, and all the women start laughing like crazy, and all the men look at the women like, "What's so funny about what he just said?" And then he goes, "Well, you see, there's some things that women get and men don't get. There's some things that men laugh at and women don't laugh at. And there's some things that everybody gets." And one of the women says, "Yeah, it's almost like men are from a different planet. What planet do you think men are from?" And he says, "I guess men are from Mars." What do you think? And everybody started laughing. And when he got home, he said, "Okay, wait, that was pretty cool." People responded more to that than to me talking about my book. Men are from Mars. So if men are from Mars, where are women from? Well, women are from Venus. Venus is the god of love, right?
Yeah.
What if I change the title of my book to Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus? And then the same book, but just put some references to Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus in the book. What do you think happened? He's telling me almost overnight, 500,000 people bought my book. I'm like, whoa. He eventually sold 50 million books, not 50,000, 50 million. 20,000 to 50 million books just because he changed the title.
Yeah.
Whoa. And it blew my mind. And so when I got home, I had a copy of the book. I was going to put the book in my passion box. And then I stopped and I said, wait a second, this is a metaphor. Men aren't really from a different planet. I know all the women out there probably think we are sometimes. Yeah, the way we act, I could get it, okay? But we're not really from a different planet. Let's start there, okay? But it's a metaphor. He's basically saying, men and women are so different that sometimes it's almost like we're from different planets. That's basically Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, what it means. And I realized the guy with the egg, dropping the egg into a sizzling frying pan, was basically a metaphor too. He was saying, here's your brain. They're probably sitting around a table and thinking, hey, we got to do an ad to get people to stop taking drugs. So what would be a really cool thing to talk about? Well, when you take drugs, what happens? And someone probably said, well, it fries your brain. Okay, what else gets fried? An egg. Let's have an egg and say, here's your brain on drugs. And that's how they came up with the idea. So I decided, so I realized are metaphors the secret to emotional selling? Like my product is just like, what is it like? And have fun with how you want to be creative about that. So I took the passion box and I dumped it on my bed because I had a ton of stuff. So I wanted to really spread it out to see if metaphors is the only, brain trigger, the emotional selling. And it turns out that it's one of 14 brain triggers at the heart of emotional selling. And I thought my brain was going to explode if I just figured out something that nobody's figured out, and So because I was a consultant, I had clients. We were living in Southern California. I had clients, like marketing clients and behavioral management clients. And I started applying it on clients, and it blew my mind because suddenly sales exploded. And I went like, whoa, have I just figured out something nobody else has figured out? There were three guys who had a construction company that I was working with, and it was 10 years old. After 10 years, they made $2 million of sales. That's not bad. $2 million of sales, right? Ha! I said it. Just kidding. I got to practice brain glue on them. They went from 2 to 10 million in sales in 1 year, and then 32 million they reached 2 years later. And I freaked out because I was like, is this legal? Like, what, am I just figuring something I'm not supposed to be doing? Why he was making so much money? But it turns out that, like, people make a fortune who apply this. And also I talk about people who make a fortune, because when you start to understand how it works, how these tools work, you realize like, wow, this is really powerful. I'll give you some examples. So let's say you create a glue, okay? And it's a really cool glue. There's some better glues, but I think this is a really cool glue. So glue, you start with a metaphor. It's just like what? It's as strong as an elephant, okay? Well, there's a tool, a brain glue tool that's called alliteration, the repetition of sound, and it's like Coca-Cola, Best Buy, PayPal, TikTok, Marilyn Monroe. You think it's a coincidence that they have sounds that repeat?
Yeah.
No. And so they're thinking glue. So Gorilla Glue, let's call it Gorilla Glue. Gorilla Glue exploded in sales because they came up with this tool that uses a metaphor. It's like it's glue that's strong enough that it's like a gorilla, and good Gorilla Glue. It sticks together. There's